Okay, tonight's speaker is Reza Rad. He is a Microsoft Regional Director. He's one of 150 worldwide. It's quite a it's quite a coveted role, and we know each other from that and from various MVP summits because I'm a regional director also. And he's also been a data platform MVP since 2011. And 20 years of experience. He's co-founder of Radicad. I list his blog URL there. He'll have more information, but I wanted to point out that I went to his website. There's just a tremendous amount of learning material there. There are ebooks that are free. There's tremendous resources. He's been hard at it and does a lot of writing and a lot of speaking. And so some very valuable material there. You might want to check it out. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn things over to Reza.
Great. Okay, thank you, Mark, for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone, for attending this session. This session is about Power BI development architecture, which is more like discussion about how data flows and data sets plays an important role in building a Power BI development architecture. Mark already explained all things about me. Thanks for the introduction. As Mark said, if you are interested in learning about Power BI or AI, we have a lot of materials in our website. Many of them are free, available for you, like books, YouTube videos, and blog articles. I have also some video courses, which is also available in our website. There are links at the end of this slide deck, and I'll share the slide deck with Mark so he can share it with you later on. I'll have probably like a couple of stops in the middle of presentation as well. So I'll check with Mark in the middle of session that if there is any questions and the chat window and things like that, we'll go through those questions and a little bit longer time at the end of the session. So talking about Power BI architecture, like back in 2015, when Power BI first came to the market, it was built in a way that it is perfect for a single developer to build a single Power BI solution for that, right? Imagine this persona, someone who is a single BI developer, business analyst, let's say data analyst or anything like that. This single person now wants to build a solution that multiple users are going to use it, but they are like end users. The only developer would be this single person building a solution. In the scenario like this, you need the solution to be fast to develop, something agile, something that is easy to make changes, something that is easy for that single developer to work with that, right? And Power BI is quite good for that. In Power BI, you can connect to a data source using Power BI Desktop, get data from it, do some transformation in Power Query, create relationships, write calculations with DAX, visualize it in Power BI, build your solution, save it as one single Power BI file with the extension of PBIX, publish it to the service, and share it to users through apps, workspaces, and anything like that, right? Anytime you want to make a change later on, you just open that file again, make some changes, publish it again, right? One single solution, everything is available there, easy to use, right? That is a really simple scenario, but the scenario is different when you have multiple users, multiple developers, let's say. When you have multiple developers, because in multiple developer scenario, you might have one solution or you might have multiple solutions. Even single developer with multiple solutions would be a little bit different than what I already explained. When you have multiple developers, there are some challenges in having one single file. Multiple developers cannot open one file at the same time and change it. I mean, they can open and change it, but then they have like two separate copies of that file, which are totally different from each other. How they are going to merge it? At the moment, we don't have really a good, let's say, source control merging experience, multi-developer experience with Power BI at the moment. Not a built-in solution, right? So everyone should, like, I should have my own copy, like making changes, saving it, sending it to Mark, for example. Mark applies some more changes and then save it, send it back to me. It's not really a parallel experience, right? That's one problem. Another problem is that because we keep everything in one file, this will be growing big, quite big as we go. We have more tables as we go, more relationships, more data. This will lead the refresh time to be much longer. Everything would be much bigger in this environment. You'll have much more visualization pages as you go. You will have a really big file. Every time you open, it might take like some time to create, let's say, a new measure, to change something. Even if it is a small change, let's say you have your model in production environment that is working, then you realize there is a simple change you want to make. You have to open that entire file, make that simple change, save it, publish it, and this process might take quite a long time because it's such a big file, right? A single file would come with problems like that, right? Now let's talk about an example of these problems. One of these problems is that when you want to use one table in multiple files, right? One query in multiple files. In Power Query, we call tables query. That is why I call this a query. Imagine this scenario. Let's say I am a, let's say, BI developer or business analyst, building a solution using Power BI for the sales team. And I spent like some month to build this solution, and sales team really liked that. I have a file called sales PBIX file, which has date table in it, sales transaction, product table, customer table, few other tables like that, right? Now, after a few weeks, inventory team, warehouse management team, or whatever you might call it, they also come to me and say, that report you've done for the sales team was great. Can we have also something for that for the inventory team? I say, yep, why not? But then realizing that these are like totally different things, right? I shouldn't put them all in one file because that's like sales information, this is inventory information, and they might not even like to see each other's data. So what I'll do, I'll create a new Power BI file separate from sales file. I call it inventory PBIX file. And in this one, I have dimensions and tables such as warehouse, fact tables such as inventory movement and things like that. Now, I also have some tables that are common between this and the sales PBIX file. For example, the product table. In the sales table, I had the product table. In inventory Power BI file, I also need a product table or date table. I need it in both files, right? Now, imagine this scenario that I spend a lot of time actually in the sales PBIX file to build that table, right? I spend a lot of time, merge product with category, with color, clean that data up. I spend a lot of Power Query transformation to build that. Now I'm going to do that again in this new Power BI file? No, I'm not going to do that again. So what I'll do, I'll go to the first file. I'll copy that Power Query script, M script, coming to the new file, pasting it over here, right? And that is problem solved because in Power Query, that M script is everything you need, right? As soon as you copy it in your new file, if you have access to the same data source, you would get exactly the same output, right? But then the thing is that this is not solving the problem. It is adding another problem to the challenge. The problem is that now I have that file in two places. I didn't spend that much time to create the second copy, but the problem is that if after a couple of weeks, after a month, I go to the sales Power BI file and realize that I have missed a couple of transformations in the date dimension or in the product dimension, the one that is in both files. Then I apply that over there. I have to remember that, okay, inventory file is also using the same table. So let's go there and edit it over there as well, right? And this is a scenario of like having two files. What if I have like 3 files and 4 files, right? What if I have like 10 different Power BI files, right? It is not easy to maintain a scenario like that. My source code is everywhere. There is no single version of the source code, right? The M script, the Power Query script that I use to generate the product table, the date table, all of these common tables, they are like everywhere. If I want to go and change it, I have to remember and changing it in many places. Now, how can I solve this challenge? The answer for that in the Power BI environment is Dataflow. Now, you might have heard of Dataflow, or you might be new to that, so I'll explain that quite briefly. Dataflow is a Power Query script, a Power Query process, let's call it, that runs in cloud independent from Power BI report. Independent because it is not writing into Power BI dataset. It is writing it in a different place. The output of the Power Query that runs in cloud, the output of a data flow, is not in Power BI. The Power Query that is part of your Power BI solution right now is loading data into Power BI, right? That is the difference between data flow and that Power Query. That Power Query in Power BI as part of your dataset loads data into your dataset. Dataflow, however, doesn't. Dataflow loads data in a different destination. Now, what is that destination, you might ask? Right now, the destination for that, right now, the destination for that is Azure Data Lake, Azure Data Lake storage, and that is as a CSV format under files under folders in Azure Data Lake storage. And there are some discussions that other types of storage options would be available later on, but for now, this is the only storage options. Now, a lot of people also think that what if I don't have a data lake subscription? What if my company is not using Azure at all? That's not really a problem, because your Power BI account, Pro or Premium, whatever it is, has a amount of space in it. Let's say if you have Pro account, you have 10 gigabytes of space. Part of that space is an internal Azure Data Lake storage, which you can use for data flow. So you don't really need any other subscription or any other things apart from your Power BI account. However, if you have your own Azure Data Lake subscriptions, you can use that, and you can connect that to Power BI and create a data flow. We call it external data flow in that case. Now, after Power BI data flows running in the cloud, storing it in Azure Data Lake as a CSV format, what is the point for Power BI? Power BI can get data from that data flow, right? So it's like you process that transformation, you load it in a CSV format, store it somewhere in cloud, and then Power BI reads it from there in a transformed way. Power BI just loads that data. It doesn't need to do extra transformation on it, right? So if I want to go back to the same challenge I've been talking about, that I have sales Power BI file and inventory Power BI file, Dataflow can solve it like this. All of my shared tables, date dimension, product dimension, anything else, I can have them processed through a data flow. Each data flow can have more than one table if I want to. So that data flow has the code of transformation in it. It processes that, it stores it as a CSV file, and then these two PBIX files, they get data from the result of that when it is just transformed and ready to be used in Power BI. I just load it into the sales file, I just load it into the inventory file, and then create relationships, calculations, whatever I want, do the visualization with that. This way, I actually decoupled my data transformation layer from the rest of Power BI model. This is a powerful ability because it helps you to have one person building the data flow and another person doing the rest of the modeling and visualization, right? There are lots of other benefits for data flow. This is another example. When you have everything in one Power BI file, your heavy duty transformations, Power Query transformation, is also in that file. Versus if you compare it with this scenario that you put your heavy duty transformation in a data flow. that runs those transformations, store it as a CSV file. In Power BI, you just load that data, right? Your Power BI refresh time would be much smaller, which helps you to faster develop something, right? Your overall refresh time is still the same, right? Even in this diagram, you see that the overall time is the same. However, the Power BI refresh time itself would be faster, which helps you in faster development of a Power BI report. Another useful scenario of this is that you can actually build a data warehouse using this approach. Data flows can be like your ETL, extract, transform, load component of getting data from sources, applying transformations, loading it into a destination. Your destination can be like a data warehouse style, tables, fact, dimensions, things like that inside Azure Data Lake. There are lots of businesses that they don't really have a budget separately for setting up Azure SQL database, Azure SQL data warehouse, or a separate ETL tool like that. And Dataflow can just give them all of these with just normal Power BI accounts that they have, right? So these are like some of the benefits and what the Dataflow is. Now let me show you a very quick demo of that Dataflow. One of the things you need to know at the beginning of using Dataflow is that Dataflow is a service-only feature. It is not something you can create in Power BI Desktop. In the Power BI Desktop, you cannot go and create Dataflow. It should be created in the website. Now, in the website, it should be created under an organizational workspace. I'm going, for example, to this workspace. And here I can start by creating a Dataflow like that, right? So I can go and create a Dataflow. One more time. Here it is. Now, there are different ways to create it. This is not a session about how to build a Dataflow, so I just go through a simple way of doing it, which is define new entities. Entities are basically tables. Add new entities. When I click on this, it will bring a window which is quite similar to Power Query in Power BI Desktop. If you use Power BI Desktop, if you use Power Query, when you click on Get Data, you see something similar to this, a little bit different. This is like a Power Query online, right? This is the same experience. If I have SQL Server data source, I can easily go and choose it here. Enter the server name, database name. If I have a gateway for that, select that, and all those configurations, right? Now, for this example, I have a Power BI file here. And this Power BI file is a sales Power BI file. I have like 3 tables here: customer, product, sales. Now, let's say I'm also interested to bring a date table. Date table is quite generic table in any solution, in any BI solution. And that is one of the reasons why Power BI has its own built-in version of a date table. However, that built-in version of a date table is pretty limited. You don't have fiscal columns in it. You don't have like calendar working days and things like that that are mostly customizable by you. I prefer to use my own date table. Now, I have a script for creating a date table, and you can find this script in my blog as well. The full script, you can just copy it, and then here start with get data blank query, paste it, and use it. But then if I do it this way, the problem is that the source code would be part of this file for that transformation, which I don't want this to happen, because later on, whenever I want to make a change in that, I have to come to this file versus comparing it. If I build it in Dataflow, I can reuse it in multiple places, and I can change it easily later on as well. So what I'll do, I'll go to my Dataflow here. I start with a blank query, especially because I have the entire M script. I paste that query over here, right? Now this is a script that you can customize it. You can say start from this year, go to this year, this is first of fiscal year, all those kind of things. I'm going to just use it as is. I don't need any gateway for this because this is just automatically generated from year to year. So Click on next. And this will bring Power Query editor online for me, which has all the columns, all the transformations that are built by this tax, sorry, not tax, M expression. Now I can add more transformations if I want here, because here I have a lot of transformations to use. But this is already good to be used. I'm calling this table date, and I can have more tables in one data flow, of course. For now, this is only one enough. I'll save and close this one. I'm going to call this San Francisco, let's say, user group data flow. Now you can schedule your data flow to be refreshed, and usually that is what you do, but for now I just refresh it manually. Now while that is refreshing, here in this file, I'm going to get that date table. Consider it this way, that I am building this model. I'm a data modeler. I have no idea how to build a date table, but I need one. And I've heard from someone that there is already a date table in a data flow. I want to use it, right? And I have access to it. So what I'll do is I'll go to get data, and I choose get data from Power BI data flows, right? It's like a data source itself. I go from get data from Power BI data flows. Then I also need to log in with my account, of course. I'll see all the workspaces that there is a data flow under that. I'll expand this one, and what did I call it? San Francisco user group data flow. Here it is. And this is my date table. So easily, I managed to get this date table without even knowing how this table is created, right? The layer of data transformation is abstract from my view, from data modeler view, from data visualization view. I don't know how this is built, and I don't really care how this is built. I just need this table, and this table is here. I just click on this and load. And that would be enough for me to continue my development, right? And we can work at the same time. The person who builds that date table can continue maintaining it. Here I can continue building the model based on it and creating relationships, writing DAX expression, visualization, everything afterwards, right? The beauty of this model is that later on, if I need this date table in another Power BI file, it's just like that, get data from Power BI data flow. If I need it in a third Power BI file, get data from Power BI data flow. I totally decoupled the data transformation layer in a centralized place, call it data flow. I have all of my common tables like date, time, product, customer, whatever you need. And then I get data from there, right? That is a data flow as one layer of architecture. We'll talk about the next layer as well, but let me just check, is there any questions so far? Otherwise, we'll just move on. I'm not sure where I can see any chat. Okay.
Yeah, I was on mute. The question from Amit is how to give access to users on Dataflow.
Depends on what is definition of the user. If the user is like the end user doesn't really need to have access to the data flow. If by user we mean someone like this user here that is like opening Power BI desktop, getting data from data flow. If that is that kind of user, then one way to do that is to give them access to that workspace so that they can also connect to the content of that workspace and build something out of it.
Got it. And Harmesh was asking the question, how is it different from maintaining such tables in any database?
I'd say quite the same. Like if I have, imagine it this way, that if I have my date table created and stored in a SQL Server database and I use it from there, that is also absolutely fine, right? Or if I have it in Oracle database and use it from there, it's absolutely fine. As long as you have like a separate layer of transformation, it is fine. Now in Power BI, this is possible with Dataflow, especially for those users, for those people, companies who don't really have any other components. They might not have SQL Server. They might not have really a separate database. This is provided for them. If you do have those technologies, that is also working absolutely fine.
Okay, and then Nishant is asking if I create a data model in Dataflow, which has data from various systems like Salesforce, ERP, etc., what is the maximum rate of refreshes I can use for my BI report?
It is the same refresh frequency that you have for your normal Power BI account. So with Power BI Pro, 8 times a day, with Premium, 48 times a day, and unlimited REST API refresh.
Okay, and then what is the difference between using Power BI shared data sets and Power BI data flows?
Good question. And if there is no more question, I think this is a good time to talk about that, which is the next part of the session.
Okay, great.
Okay, and any questions remain, we'll get to that afterwards as well.
Okay.
So you learned about data flow. Now let's talk about data set. What is a data set? And then what is the difference between Power BI data flows and data sets, right? Now to learn the difference between data flow and data set, first you need to understand what the data set is, because it is not that much like an obvious concept in the whole Power BI ecosystem. What is a data set? It needs a little bit of explanation. When you build a Power BI solution in Power BI, like this one that I have here, you have one Power BI file with the extension of PBIX. However, behind the scene, this file is constructed from 2 different objects. One is a report, another is a dataset. You see only one file. You see only one PBIX file in Power BI Desktop, everything in one place, but they are in fact different. Report is all the visualizations, let's say different pages of visualization, slicer, column chart, all those kind of things, the colors, layout, everything in terms of the visuals. Dataset, on the other hand side, is hosted in a service called Microsoft SQL Server Analysis Services. It's a tabular version of this instance, which automatically installed when you install Power BI Desktop, right? So even if you install Power BI Desktop on a machine that you actually never had a SQL Server on it, this will automatically install this service. And if you go to Task Manager of your machine, you'll see actually that this service is always running under Power BI Desktop. This is a place that the actual data is hosted, right? The data rows, columns, tables, their relationships, all of your DAX calculations, measures, everything is in there, right? The connection to the data source, all of these. This is what we call a data set, right? Now, when you publish your solution to the Power BI website, this is much simpler to understand, because in the website, we have a section for data sets, we have a section for reports, and they have different actions. For report, for example, you can share. For data sets, you can do things such as schedule refresh or refresh it now or connect it to the data source and things like that, right? So 2 different objects. Now, let's talk about this component as well. Now that you know what the data set is, let's see how data set can play an important role in this architecture. And then what is the difference of data set with the data flow? Let's say you have multiple report visualizers, right? They are good at building visualization. They are good at building charts and visualization, anything like that. Now they want to connect to the same model, to the same, let's say, set of tables and related to each other with some DAX expressions that probably took a lot of time to build. They want to connect to that and build their visualizations, the report out of it. What should we do? Should we create a copy of that first Power BI file, the first model, and then do separate visualizations? No, we can use one model one dataset to be used as a shared dataset. What is a shared dataset? A shared dataset is a dataset that is used in multiple reports. Default is this, that every dataset is used for one report, like one, right? But you can easily have one dataset to be used in 10 different reports. All of that can get data from this dataset, right? And that is a shared dataset. Any dataset can be a shared dataset. When you publish your Power BI report to the service, you can go and build a new report from that using these options in the service. Or even in the Power BI desktop, you can say get data from Power BI dataset. Let me show you that as a demo. So here, let me close this one as well. Here I have another workspace, this one. Okay, now in this workspace, I have a number of reports, as you can see. Oh, sorry, wrong workspace here. Didn't go to that workspace. Let me try again, my workspace. Okay, now going to this workspace. Okay, better. So here I have a number of reports. This is one of those reports, which has some movies information, like movie sales and things like that. Let's say I want to see what the dataset for this is. One way to see the dataset for a report is to click here, go to view related. And this is a place I see the dataset related to that. And you see right beside here, I have this little icon. This allows me to create another report connected to the same dataset. So this dataset would be used as a shared dataset if I use that. My new report would not have a dataset of its own, will use this dataset instead, right? That is how I can do that in Power BI website. In Power BI desktop, kind of the same. The difference is that I would say get data from Power BI dataset instead of Power BI Dataflow. So let's wait for this to come up for a second. Yep. So let's say I'm a report visualizer. I have no idea how the movie's data model is built, what are complex calculations in it, how tables are related. What I'll do is I'll go to get data and I choose Power BI dataset, right? Not Dataflow, datasets. I will see all the data sets that my account has access to it, right? Here you see that, like, these are all data sets. Some of them I have created, some of them someone else has created, and somehow I have access to it, right? You also see endorsement column here, which is a labeling system. It shows that like these three are certified data sets, these two are promoted data sets, and everything else is like blank, right? What is this? This is the concept of gold, silver, bronze reports, right? Somebody marked these as certified because they are highly trusted. They've been through lots of test processes and they are quite reliable to use. Promoted is not probably as that much reliable, but still better than a data set that anyone can create, right? So this is a labeling system, and usually those with higher endorsement comes at the top. I'll show you where we can do these endorsements. In this case, I know that this is a data set I'm going to use, right? So I'll just create a connection to that. And this would, as soon as I create that connection, this would create a live connection to that Power BI dataset. You see that here, it is written. And I have all the tables that I need. I'm using Power BI in a live connection mode. You see that Power Query is disabled here. You see that here I have only the visualization tab of Power BI, not the model or the data tab. This is just Power BI pure for visualization. I can do any visualization I want, like give me the sales, worldwide sales by title of movies, and I can make it like that. I can build whatever visualization I want without knowing how this model is built, what are the connection between these tables, or how DAX measures are created. Then I can save this file let's say I call it movies San Francisco user group. And I'm going to publish it. And the fact is that I can even publish it in another workspace, right? But in this case, I just publish it to the same workspace. Now, when I do that, I'll just open this in the Power BI website. This is that report I've created. When I go to view related, I see that this report is using the same data set that I had from before, right? And even if I go to that data set itself, which is this one, when I click on view related, it shows me all other reports and dashboards using this. And even if they are in other workspaces, right? So easily this data set you can see is used in multiple reports, multiple dashboards. The beauty of this model is that my report visualization layer also can be decoupled from the data modeling layer. And I can have easily data visualizers to go and build visualization on top of an existing model. Now, the place I said I will show you how you can do the certified and things like that is here. I can go to a data set and settings of that data set. Under endorsement, this is a place that we can do default, promoted, or certified. And certified can be managed by the Power BI tenant admin that only a select group of people can do that. So they have like a test procedure to go through and build that. Okay, now the next part is to combine datasets and data flow together in one single architecture and the difference between those. Now, before talking about that, any questions so far?
There are just some discussions, some clarifications that people have been trying to send to each other.
Okay, so in that case, I'll continue, and then at the end we'll go through if there is any other questions.
There is a question about licensing. It says, are there any restrictions if you have only pro licenses?
For the shared data set, no, nothing. Pro license would just work fine. For the data flow, however, there are some restrictions, like there are certain type of activities that only premium capacity licensed can do that, like computed entity, linked entity, like the ability to refresh it more often, like things like AI insight. These are premium functions. However, using data flow for normal, like standard things, you can do that with Pro. The demo that I showed you was done with Pro, right? Okay, so let me do the next part, which is the last part, and then we'll see what other questions we have. So we talked about data flow, we talked about data set. Now let's see how they are placed in this architecture. So the architecture that I'm suggesting, which is quite useful, and most of Power BI solutions, I guess, should use this, is a 3-layer architecture like this. The first layer of architecture is the data transformation layer. This is the ETL layer. This is a layer that we build data flows, which get data from sources, files, databases, and things like that. It applies data transformation. It stores it in Azure Data Lake storage. That is the first layer of building Power BI solution. And the person who builds this layer is a person who needs to know Power Query, M scripting, and Power Query. The second layer is a layer, we call it a shared data set, shared data model, whatever you might call it, which includes multiple data marts. These data marts, they might have some tables in common, but because those tables are coming from data flow, so it's not a problem. It's not repeating the source code multiple times. It's just getting data from there, right? These are like star schema data marts. These are shared data sets with the relationships, with DAX calculations, and anything like that. The person who built this, or people who built this layer, are those who are good at DAX, good at relationships, and those things, right? Then as a third layer, we have report visualizer. Those people who are good at building graphics and visualizations, getting data from Power BI datasets, from these datasets. And these are people who are good at building visualization. So you have like 3 different type of developers working in this environment at the same time, right? And another good thing is that because it is layered, because it is modular, the good thing is that you can replace one layer by another thing. Let's say, for example, you have a lot of Excel users, which happens quite a lot in a lot of environment that Power BI is used. Now, Excel users are great at Excel. They can use Analyze in Excel to connect to an existing data set using Analyze in Excel, which will create a live connection from Excel to that shared data set. So here you can see that my third layer is replaced from, instead of Power BI, it is now Excel, right? Or let's say in your organization, you are not authorized to use Power BI as a visualization tool for some reason. The board of directors made that decision to use Tableau or ClickSense or anything else, right? Which can happen sometimes. Now, those tools are good visualization tools, but they are not good at modeling or things like that. So you can still have Power BI doing the modeling, doing the transformation modeling, and use Tableau, Click, or anything else as your visualization layer. This feature, however, is something that needs premium capacity because you are using XML endpoint, an endpoint connection to Power BI dataset in the service. So if that be an implementation, it works like this. My layer of visualization would be Tableau connecting to those. Or paginated reports. Now I reckon Peter is doing a paginated report session next week, and he will explain well in details what that is. Paginated report is a report built for printing specific margins on this side, paginated, headers, footers, things like that. You can build that, and that can be also sourced from shared dataset. So my visualization layer can be anything because it is modular, because it is a layer of visualization. I can replace it with anything I want. Or alternatively, like, for example, let's say if I'm using other technologies, I'm using SSIS for transformation, then my data flow can be replaced with SSIS and stores data in SQL database or anything like that. These are layered implementation, which is helping on that. This architecture I'm talking about is not really new architecture. It is something that you have seen if you have been in BI space for a while. These are like some of the 2 prior architectures options we had with Microsoft BI technologies. This one particularly was called the BI Burger. You might have heard of that. And they are also talking about the same type of things, layered implementation of a BI solution so that you can easily replace one layer by another. And these are like decoupled from each other. There are lots of benefits in decoupling. You will reduce the amount of code you are duplicating here and there. You can reuse a lot of your calculations. Data flow and data sets are not hardcore developer tools. Like if we talk about SSIS, if we talk about SQL Server, these are tools and services that like a developer need to work with that. But data flow is not like that. Data flow is Power Query, right? Anyone who know about Power BI can also build a data flow, right? One of the beauties of this model is that it is built for even a business analyst. Now, this is a slide that at the end I compare dataset and data flow because you might still have some doubts about what is data flow, what is a dataset, because they both are storing data, right? Now, the difference is that these are not like replacement of each other. They are complement of each other. You would use both beside each other to build a proper solution. Data flow is replacement of Power Query, is replacement of your ETL layer, is actually your ETL layer. Dataset is replacement of your DAX calculation, modeling, relationships. It can also include Power Query in it, but better to have that part separately, that part to be done in Dataflow, right? So dataset only focuses on relationships and calculations, which is in fact your modeling layer. Someone who built dataset is a person who knows the relationships in Power BI, someone who knows DAX and calculations. Someone who builds Dataflow is someone who knows Power Query. If I'm going to be the person who builds Dataflow, I don't really need to know DAX, right? That's not my job. I'm doing this part only, right? Now, the user of Dataflow is someone who builds dataset, which we call it a data modeler. The user of a dataset is someone who do the visualization, report visualizer. Dataflow is used to solve the problem of having multiple copies of the same table, like what you have seen for the date example I showed you. Dataset is the answer to a solution that I have multiple report visualizers want to use the same model, same types of calculations in different visuals, right? So these two are two essential components that you need them both. It's not the fact that I need this, I don't need that, right? So I just do a quick wrap up and then we'll get to the questions. Everything that I mentioned to you, there are free articles, blog posts, and videos in my blog, in Radacat blog, if you go and find it. I also have an upcoming Power BI architecture course coming next week. And that's actually is part of the academy. And here we have like 10 free 1 month membership of academy with this code. So be fast to use it. And that's it. So I'm open to any questions if you have.
There's one that got posted by Bharat, which is, why are we normally pulling whole tables from the database into Power BI instead of using a procedure as in SSRS? It seems we are duplicating data in multiple locations, one in database server and another in Power BI. Can you please clarify this model?
So the fact is that you can still use a procedure to build analysis in Power BI. That is also a possible option. But then the problem is that usually, because in Power BI you build reports by, you build a lot of analysis, not just one table visual or things like that. So you need a bunch of tables. You need to be able to self-service this analysis. And that is something that usually you are able to do that with multiple tables and their relationships. It would mean duplicating data in multiple places, of course, yes, but that is also the whole concept of like layered implementation. Like even if we consider only the ETL part and data warehouse, there are scenarios of like getting data from the source, staging it first, which is without any transformation, then converting it to a data warehouse, which is with the transformation into a star schema, then loading it into analysis services tabular, which is again another copy, but in memory copy. So every layer brings a lot of benefits and a lot of things in it. It's not like one single storage should be used for everything, because when it comes to analysis, the end goal is to have a fast analysis for our end user. The storage amount that is used is an important option, but it is not the critical option to look at.
Okay, and Elena is asking, well, let me see if there's one above that. Can we say, this is from Nagaraj, it's private to me, it says, can we say I collect data from various data sources and build a Power BI app, the data set in parentheses, like a corporate KPI data set, which can be used by finance or marketing or sales individual app? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure as well, but I guess you are talking about like building like a central data set that you can use other places, probably through a Power BI app. You can do that because when you publish an app, one of the checkboxes is that are like users of apps, do you want them to be able to get data from that from the data sets over there and build their own reports? Yeah, it is a possible option.
Okay, and then Elena, her comment is, I've played with all this, but have been unable to set up data flows that pull in .accdb files.
Is
I've read,
ACCDB for like Access database?
I suspect so because I know she works with Access quite a bit. She said,
Yeah.
I've read it can be done, but only via enterprise gateways.
Yes, correct. So the thing is that like now I haven't really had Access database in any data flows that I have encountered, but I guess your Access file is probably located somewhere on-prem, and that is why you need on-premises gateway to be able to connect from there to your Access data source. The difference of Power Query in Power BI Desktop and Dataflow is that in Power Query in Power BI Desktop, you don't really need gateway when you build your solution, when you develop your solution, and even after publishing it. You only need gateway when you want to schedule it to refresh in the website. In Dataflow, you need the gateway from the beginning if your source is on-prem, because otherwise it is not going to connect to your source, right? So that might be the difference Elena is experiencing.
Okay, and John happened to make the comment to everybody, said, check out RadAcad Online Academy.
Thank you, John.
And he's got the link there for people.
Appreciate that.
And Bharat is saying, when there's a huge data set in the database, and then we start pulling whole table to Power BI for reporting, don't we have a problem? Don't we have any problem with performance?
You can actually, so like performance is like a big topic itself.
Yep.
There are things that can be done here, many things. Like if the table is huge, you can set up incremental refresh. Don't load the entire table, only load it partially. And incremental refresh can be done in the dataset, can be done in the data flow, can be done in both, which is usually good to be done in both. That's one thing. Another thing is that when the table is huge, and when I talk about huge, I mean like hundreds of millions of rows, billions of rows, let's say. In those scenarios, you have to use some of the methods to boost the performance up. Aggregation is one of those. You can really speed up the performance of your model with aggregations. Even if you have like trillion rows of data, it can be just fast with clicks here and drops here. It would work just instantly. Christian Wade, Power BI program manager, one of the Power BI program managers, has a really famous demo on that he works with like petabytes of data in Power BI, and it's just super fast. It drags it and it just visualizes it. It works with aggregation. So when it comes to performance tuning, there are a lot that can be done.
Okay, and Kim commented to everybody, you can build a corporate data set and use row level security using AD or Office 365 groups to separate data access.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the good use cases of this type of model as well, because all your report visualizers then would be using it through that row level security.
Yeah, and Kim adds to that, but the design architecture, you would consider creating a base corporate level and smaller data marts for each business unit. Sort of comment.
Is also a good one.
Yeah, could do that. Yeah, Elena would like to learn more about enterprise gateways. I don't know if you want to comment on that tonight, or if we should just get it in a different
Yeah,
meeting.
I can just shortly talk about that. Enterprise gateway, or let's say Power BI gateway, is a way that a Power BI dataset in cloud or Dataflow in cloud connects to your on-prem data sources. But there are lots of details, so I guess it would be good to have like a separate session later on about that subject.
Yeah. Kim also adds that for performance, you can set up incremental refreshes every 30 minutes in a data flow, or less if modeled through a data set. You can then look at using apps, and she mentions a Phil Seamark blog about it.
Really good.
Then Choi says, similar to a data flow that you just created without being linked to a report with visuals, do you think at some point Power BI would let you publish just the data set without the report layer?
We don't have that option yet, because when you publish it right now, report and dataset would come together. You can then go and remove the report from the Power BI dataset. But as soon as you publish it again, the report comes with that, right? In the future, it might be possible. I haven't heard anything about that, like building a dataset separately and publishing just dataset is an option. I haven't heard, but I won't be amazed if such a thing be available, because the concept of like shared dataset is used a lot recently.
Okay, and then Prabhav made the comment, Christian Wade got some swag when working on those petabytes of data. Love it. And yep. I heard Christian used to live he used to live in Bakersfield, and we had him speak multiple times to our group. And then I did at Ignite last year, I did hear him speak on that and do that demo. And it's pretty impressive. You got to know what you got to have a plan when you're going to work with that much data. You got to know where you're headed on the aggregations. Let's see, many people saying thanks, Reza.
Thank you.
Thanks for a wonderful presentation. This clears a lot of doubts. That's from Nishant. Reza, this was an awesome presentation. Can't thank you enough. That's from Rose. Choi was thanking you for answering his question. Bharat, loved the session. Raul, incredibly helpful session. As always, I try to listen to all the Reza webinars that I can. Thank you from Costa Rica. He was dialed in from Costa Rica.
Thank you.
And very informative session, Reza. Very nice. It's the best organized I've ever seen this content. Another one from Reza Rocks. So
thank you.
Everyone
is so kind. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Reza. We really appreciate you taking the time to present to our group, and great material, and you've got such a wealth of additional material on your website too. So really appreciate that. Okay, I think we'll call it a wrap. We will have we have recorded this, and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel, and I'll make that URL available on Meetup, and if you need it, you can also just contact me directly. We'll get it posted in a few days. We have to edit out kind of the start and the end. We don't include the intros. We start it at the time that I hand things over to the speaker. So I'm sure that's what we'll do again this time. But thanks everyone for joining us. Glad so many of you could make it. Reza, again, thanks. Enjoy things hunkered down in
Thank you.
New Zealand. And
thanks for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for attending.
okay, very good.